there's an interesting saying in the industry that the founder sort of chases the first term sheet, but after first term sheet, VC chases the founder. So I was talking to somebody a few days back that there is a lot of lack of knowledge about VC firms in college, right? People only see some types of jobs which usually come on campus, but VC is not a job which comes on campus. VC is usually a job which you end up doing after a couple of years of experience. Yeah.
Is it also true that, because I heard from someone, is that if you enter any coffee shop in Bangalore, you would likely see a startup pitching their product to someone?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I mean, if you go to a third wave, or now there are a lot of coffee shops, but if you go third wave is like the flag barrier. But yeah, if you go to any third wave, you see people working there, founders working there, founders pitching there. That happens all the time. I keep all my meetings in coffee shops, so I do that, so I know that happens a lot. Yeah. So about me, I've been here at Stellaris for last 10-11 months. I'll specifically look after SaaS investments, very actively look after AI and dev infra tooling. Prior to this, I graduated in 2020 from IIT Gandhinagar, did my undergrad in computer science and engineering, was quite active in doing research in machine learning back in college. So post that, I joined an early stage startup based out of Hyderabad as an ML engineer. So I worked there for 1.5 years, was building perception models on autonomous vehicles there. Then post that, I had a sort of knack for building my own company. So I joined entrepreneurship first cohort. There I met a guy and we started building a company in social media space. So we tried to build the company for 10 months, had a couple of users which sort of joined us on board, tried the product, a couple of iterations of the product. But at the end of 10 months, we realized that it won't work out. So we stopped it and I started looking for new roles. And that's how I ended up at Stellaris.
I think one of your journey is pretty interesting, essentially because of the fact that I was looking at your LinkedIn, etc., and you mentioned that you sort of had to close your first startup because of lack of funding, and sort of life came at a full circle to you because now you sort of work to give startups sort of their first funding. Can you tell us about how did that sort of thing happen? How did you got into Stellaris, as well as how do you look upon now, sort of back at your startup days, about what could you have done better, and sort of what do you look at companies when you sort of invest in them?
Okay, sure. So I think when you do your first startup, there are a lot of fantasies you live in, right? Like overnight success, and then you'll get your funding the next day. You go to the office of an investor, and then you'll basically users will just come on running to you once you release the product. So there are a lot of fantasies a founder live in when you sort of start a business or release a product, right? So I think those got busted, and did a lot of mistakes. Realized that this is now how things are going to work out. So post that experience, I wanted to gain more sort of experience in understanding how startups work in general. So I had a choice: either I can go back and work for a startup, or I can go for a more sort of broader sort of top-down approach in understanding how the ecosystem works. And that's when venture capital sort of came into the picture, because that's an industry where you get to talk to a lot of founders, you get to talk to a lot of companies in your portfolio and companies you are evaluating, and see what trends are coming up in the market, how businesses are built in general, how startups work, how VC funding works, how the process for evaluating companies work. So I think that sort of hit me that this is like a very good experience for me early on. Having such an experience can help me sort of position myself later on in a particular industry, in a particular sector, and make better decisions in building a company later on in life.
Right.
I wanted to ask a question. So basically, so you're a co-founder yourself right now. And so now that you've gone through the journey of having an entrepreneurial experience, how has this perceived or this perspective helped you to become like choose startups to invest in, this SaaS startups to invest in Stellaris? How has that journey helped you decide what startups should I invest in?
So I think one of the things which really helped me is, I think two things which coming from my background have helped me in venture capital. One is understanding the technology behind the companies, right? Behind the product, behind dev infra tooling, which people are trying to build and sell to developers, or trying to sell infrastructure tooling to technology companies. So having an understanding and sort of insights into the process of building such products helped me a lot in evaluating companies. And I think the second thing is just the empathy for the founders, right? Like how hard, I understand how hard the journey is. I couldn't even scale up till a point where I could raise money, or till a point where I could say that I built something substantial, and I understood how hard it was at that point itself. Now people moving forward, raising rounds, gaining customers, serving to those customers, the journey becomes harder and harder over time. So having that sort of knack for empathy for the founders and how hard the journey is actually helps you understand the whole process of building a company.
Right.
and probably also in evaluating person, like how resilient is the founder, how motivated is the founder, how passionate is the founder about building that particular company.
Yeah, I guess you can connect with the founders because you've been there.
Yes, yeah.
So Naman, can we also go back to your college days, because I looked at you were really interested into machine learning and artificial intelligence back in your college, as well as you sort of also worked on a lot of research projects. It seemed like you were on a perfect way towards academia, towards getting things published, as well as you had multiple papers published out. How did that shift happen from sort of core machine learning, artificial intelligence, computer science back to startups, as well as talk about the time in which you were sort of what were you sort of building during your college days, as well as what were you doing in those research times as well?
Got it. So I think the journey in research and ML research started in my second year, at the end of my second year, when I ended up going for an internship to University of Lisbon, where I was working with a professor on a project where I had to basically work with a bunch of news articles and do text extraction on them. So
How did you get that internship? That's very
that was through my college. Yeah,
okay.
This was an internship which our college provides. Yeah. So I went to that internship. I really liked working on intelligence systems, in the sense that how can you build models to automatically, intelligently detect text and then predict things, right? That actually excited me a lot. So just after coming from that internship, I partnered up with a professor at my college. Uh, I worked with him from third year till the end of my college, like for 2 years, and ended up publishing a lot of papers in machine learning, in NLP specifically. And I was working specifically on digital libraries. So digital libraries is basically how do you understand scientific literature, how do you extract knowledge from scientific literature, and how do you build a knowledge graph from scientific literature. So most of my research have been in that domain. Part of it have been in agriculture application, and that was mostly motivated by building something for India, kind of knack, having that in college. That first we built a chatbot for farmers, then we built like a plant detection data set, plant disease detection data set, which actually got really famous because it was kind of the first real plant image data set in the whole academia. So I think those were the few experiences which I really enjoyed. Then I think in my third year end, I got an internship at working in a startup. So this was Observe.ai. So I went there for 2 months. I actually really enjoyed working in a startup environment where there are, say, 20 people working on a problem very early in their journey, and with an aim to build a large sort of business out of it. And that's where the research and the application, the basically applied research part of my journey and the startup and business side of things collided. And I really wanted to work for a startup. So that's when I pivoted from the research part to an applied deep tech product part, and that's when I ended up joining Deepen AI, which was the startup I was working for. So I was their sixth employee and the first AI hire. Yeah.
And do you think that sort of joining a startup versus doing research on your own and working on machine learning alone, like sort of working in these two different domains, what sort of different experiences did you had in terms of learning outcome, in terms of just generally working research versus working in a company? Yeah.
Both of them have different experiences, right? Like if you like innovating, designing, and thinking about new solutions, trying to solve for new problems, then probably research is your thing to go ahead with, right? If you want to build products, solve engineering problems, solve scalability issues, solve problems for your customers, creating business value out of your products, then I think startup experience is a better fit for you. So a lot of times what happens is a lot of research doesn't get commercialized. So it depends. If you want to solve a problem which need not necessarily get commercialized, but actually bring some kind of new knowledge to the world, then probably research is a thing to go about, right? And if you want to make things commercialized, if you want to create business value, then startups is a way to go ahead and build your career in.
Yeah. Nice. Harsh, do you have some questions?
I had a question. So you created once, I think you went in the startup in the future content consumption, I think, something around that field.
Yes.
Startup you had?
Yeah. So essentially what we were trying to do is we were trying to build a platform where you as a human can come, share articles, blogs, and videos in topics you are interested in. So suppose you are interested in finance, and
Right.
specifically, let's say you are sort of interested in stock trading, and you're an expert in that. So I would follow you on my platform, and I would see what kind of content are you reading, and consuming. So you can basically share links to things in your sort of feed. So you can share an article on how to trade, an article on how to basically insights on trading. So I would love to know as an expert what you are reading and consuming on daily basis, and it is easier for you to, rather than creating a new content, you can just basically share what you're surfing through and discovering on internet. So people essentially becomes like explorers and curators of content, and other people can consume that content.
Could you help us understand what exactly is the structure behind the venture capital firm? How is the venture capital firm sort of arranged in some sense, as well as sort of how do one navigate as an early career profession into, or maybe a college student into a venture capital as a career option?
So, in terms of organizational structure, a venture capital firm is very lean compared to other businesses. So, typically, you will find teams of 5 to 10, or probably at max 15 people handling a fund, uh, and in that you'll have like 3 to 4 partners, and then so essentially you have 3 layers of sort of organization in the investment side of things. So the top layer is like the partners, which have sort of their skin in the game in the business. They are raising money for the firm. They are spearheading the whole business. Then there is a middle management layer where you have principals, vice presidents, people, associates, which are which are on the track to become a partner in say 5 to 10 years of their journey. And then you have people, which is the junior most employees in the company, which are analysts. So analyst is typically a temporary role, which is a 2 year program and usually it's a pre-MBA program. So you go there, work for 2 years, then you either go ahead and get promoted into the partner track role, or you go ahead, work for a startup, or typically start your own startup. So I'm part of the analyst program. So I joined in as an analyst, which is like a 2 year thing.
Got it. And you also
Yeah.
mentioned that it's mostly after MBAs, which sort of people venture into get into venture capital. You came as an engineer and building a startup. How did that sort of perspective shift happen, and based on general trends?
No. So what I mentioned was you can go for an analyst program pre-MBA, but even in the partner track roles, right? You can find people who do not have an MBA. So it's not a requirement per se to have an MBA for you to be in VC. But and as an engineer, so I would tell you there are 3 paths which I've typically seen people taking, at least at my position, where they have like 2 to 3 years of experience and they go into venture capital. So I think the first route is you go via consulting route. So you go ahead, join a consulting firm, like McKinsey, Bain, BCG, or there are multiple other sort of consulting firms. Work there for 1.5 years, and you typically end up working in a particular sort of sector, or sort of work with early stage startups, and then you join a VC firm post that. That is one route. The other route is you go in the business side of a tech business or a tech startup. So you gain some operator experience in a startup, working as a product manager, working as a growth manager, marketing manager, maybe as a business analyst, work there for a couple of years, gain experience in building a company from the business side of things. And then you jump onto venture capital. And the third thing is like failed entrepreneurs like me, right? Where you sort of very early in your journey, you tried building something and it didn't work out. So to gain more experience, you ended up joining a VC firm. So I think the third category is the rarest, I would say. But yeah, the first 2 ones are most prominent ones in at least the analyst level of venture capital.
Got it.
So yeah, I mean, you won't find many engineers, to be honest, in VC. So I think, yeah, it would be even less than like say 1 or 2% of people who are an engineer and have joined VC. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like you can, like, obviously, it's just from the perspective that engineer can give a diverse range of experiences from the technical know-how that probably an MBA grad could not. And plus with the experience that you know what exactly are the technicalities of a company, what exactly goes behind the scenes. I think both of these combinations sort of makes someone as a perfect fit for the role.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would like to correct that. I think there are a lot of engineers in VC, but not software engineers, to be specific. Yeah.
Engineering by graduation.
Yeah, I mean, there are people from mechanical, electrical, and other engineering backgrounds who have gone on to sort of work in different firms and then joined venture capital. But I think, yeah, for software engineers, I think tech jobs are more exciting. But yeah.
Got it.
You spent some time in the New York University of Abu Dhabi, I think, right? As a research
Yes,
assistant.
that was a remote project. I was working with a professor just out of college. I was working for a couple of months.
Yeah.
So back then I wanted to go for a PhD. So I was exploring that path, whether like a PhD would work for me or not. But I ended up liking startup ecosystem and startups in general. So I sort of shut that option up.
Right. So how did you like figure out that you want to do this and not something else? Like there's so many options when you're an engineer. You can go in PhD, you can go in machine learning and research, or you can go in startups and ecosystem. How did you figure out that? How do you bring that clarity in life?
Yeah, I don't think I have clarity yet. But what you end up doing is you just choose on a very, say, short-term notice. I mean, you basically see what you end up liking, right? So I've been doing research for last 2 years, but
Right.
compared to that, I really like the startup experience. So
Right.
having done both of it, you sort of weigh in what you want to do, what you like to do from a long-term perspective. So option for me was I can do a PhD and go ahead and work as a software developer or join as a, probably as a professor. I didn't want to become a professor, and if I wanted to become a software developer, like I I mean, yeah, I just thought I would rather work for a startup, gain some startup experience for 5, 6 years, and I can place myself better in a position of becoming a developer or a tech leader or a position of sort of building a company. So I think for me, business side always was there, right? Like I was building a lot of tech products. I was working in tech, but there was this business side of me which stuck around, that I wanted to build products, I wanted to sell products. So I think that motivated me more to work in a startup, to go towards building my own company, or to even go ahead and join a VC firm.
Makes sense.
So tech is something I'm sort of aware of. I've done a bunch of work, and now I wanted to build my muscle on the business side of things. Yeah.
Would you like to share when you're sort of looking at new companies in terms of SaaS, in the domain of SaaS, what is something like do you follow a particular framework as a venture capital, or is it more like the gut saying that okay, I think this startup is going to do well? How is the process of evaluating a startup for you?
Yeah. No, I don't think there's a gut thing which goes into these businesses, because you are actually managing a lot of capital, and that capital is usually not yours, right? So you are sort of liable to your investors. So we raise money from other people and then invest it into other companies. So gut feeling doesn't cut it. We have to have a process to sort of invest money. So let's say you pick a SaaS company, right? So there are three aspects to a SaaS business, or in general any business, but let's pick a SaaS business. So the first thing at an early stage is the team. What is the team's background? How relevant experience do they have in the industry they're building in? Do they have any startup experience from past or not? Do they have complementary skill sets or not? If they're building an enterprise SaaS company, can they sell to enterprises? If they're building a developer tool, then can they build communities and do product led sort of marketing growth and virality in terms of selling to a developer? So understanding those gaps in terms of the skill of a particular team, understanding their background in building such products, how well do they fit in with each other? So if there are like 2 or 3 people, how well do they gel up with each other? What are the dynamics between their founders? So those are the sort of things which we try to assess and understand, whether they'll stick together and build a business for 10 years, or will they just fight over and just shut the business down in say next 2 years, because that is losing money and time for us and them both, right? So assessing that risk is important. Assessing the skill set risk is important, and assessing the business mindset and the startup scaling mindset is important. And a couple of things which we do take care of is how fast can the founder learn, how fast can they understand new things, how fast is their execution. So I think learning agility and execution speed are the two most important skill sets in a founder. And this is irrespective of whether you come from a business background or a tech background or say a deep tech background. You need to learn. You need to be able to learn new things very fast, because when you start building companies, you don't know a lot of things. So that is one. The other is your execution speed, because there's a lot of competition out there. The second aspect of evaluating a company is the market, which by market, what I mean is, so if you're building a SaaS company for say sales prospecting or sales lead generation, then how does the landscape looks like? How many companies have been there in the past? What the product which they're building? Who are they selling it to? Are there any existing products similar to their product? If it is a new market, so there are two types of market. One is an emerging market, one is a existing market. Is it an emerging market or an existing market? Existing market already have like a budget in a company to sort of pay for. So you have to fight through a lot of competition. In emerging markets, the current market size is small, but since it's growing at a very high pace, can you become a gatekeeper of that particular market and become a sort of create a lot of value for the business? So understanding how the market dynamics work, how the market is evolving, where are you placed in that particular pie, that actually is something which is very important for us. And sometimes it becomes, even if you have like a very good team, but in a bad market, you can't build a good business. So you need to operate in a very good market. And by good market, what I mean is it should be big enough for a venture backable outcome, which is essentially like $100 million revenue in next 5 to 10 years. And yeah, that is a very numerical criteria, but at the end you need to be able to build like a large business in that particular space, and a defensible business, that if a new player comes in, or say an old player sort of comes into your market, then you're still withstanding them. That is the second one. The third one is the product, that what you're sort of what solution are you trying to build? How does your product look like? How is your experience? How do your customers respond to your product? Do your customers like it? Do your customers love it? Love your product? Is your product easy to use? Does it solve the problem you're trying to solve for? What stage of the business are you in? Is it still an MVP? Are you still building the product? Is it Have you built the product and now at the scaling stage of the company? So understanding the journey of the product and what stage the company is helpful in evaluating. So I think these are broadly the three segments: team, market, and product, which we focus on.
No, sure. Just thinking about, just putting it in a different perspective. If somebody's in college, maybe want to start their own startups, how can they sort of position themselves, which sort of helps in the due diligence process for a venture capital firm? For example, if I have 2 to 3 years to build this, how do I position myself as somebody who is worthy enough to get an investment from a VC?
You just build a good business. Now, money, there's a lot of money, infinite money out there, right? Like, you just have to build a good business. You don't have to worry about like convincing a VC or impressing a VC, right? I think it's a VC's job to impress a founder to take money from them. So you don't have to optimize for taking money from a VC. You just have to optimize for building a large business, and a business which is scalable in the sense that you can build it in next 10 years. So can you build? So you need to ask yourself, do you want to build, or can you build a large business in next 10 years? If yes, then figure out how you want to build it, what you want to build it, and then the money will come in. Basically, money. I don't think money is the issue. Issue is good team building good products and good business, which can turn out to be a large outcome. So I think those are sort of the things which people should focus on.
Right.
Yeah. And as a college student, I would suggest just build as many products as possible, right? So at least if you're building a software SaaS company or a software product, right? Just iterate fast, build fast, learn about new spaces, new technologies as fast as possible. So if you move fast and you do it for a long time, you'll eventually end up doing something great. So like, say every 2 weeks or every week, I'll just build a new product. So let's say AI is going on right now, right? AI is a big market which has opened up, or which people are sort of accepting to buy now. So as a college student, what you can do is, due to the availability of AI APIs, due to the availability of a lot of open source infrastructure tooling, what you should do is you should try to look for small problems, build small solutions, and then host them online for people to see. Launch it on Product Hunt, launch it with your friend circle, launch it on forums, see how people respond to it. And do it regularly. So you don't have to stop at one product. Do it again and again and again and again. The same process. So what you'll end up doing is you'll end up understanding the technology. You'll end up understanding what use cases work, what use cases doesn't work. If something works, then work on scaling that thing. And essentially, the ideas for building such products will come from talking to people. So talk to customers, talk to brands. Talk to big brands, big tech companies. Talk to old companies. What kind of software tooling are they using? So talking to Tata, Asian Paints, or numerous other companies, and understanding what their pain points are, what softwares are they using, and building and solving for them will actually help you out. So understanding a core customer, solving for their pain point, is something which people should work on a regular basis. Yeah.
So who can be part of the fund? Like, as a individual investor, how does someone be part of this fund?
Okay.
Yeah.
As an individual investor.
Yeah, like if I've done a job for a few years and then I have some money, how can I invest this in a fund like Stellaris fund to grow my money?
So yeah, I mean,
is that an opportunity or?
Yeah, so if you have, so there's a minimum ticket size, but every, say, 3 to 4 years, all VC funds end up raising their next fund, right? So when their fundraise is happening, a lot of the money also comes from high net worth individuals or people who want to invest in these funds. So you can stay in touch with the partners in the fund, and you can, whenever the new fundraise opens up, you can interact with them, understand more about their thesis, and then see if there's an opportunity for you to invest in that fund.
Right.
So a lot of high net worth individuals end up sort of investing in VC funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, Naman, these were the questions that we had, all for you. Essentially, we got most of our questions answered by talking to you about what exactly is a venture capital firm, how does it function, and sort of how do we look upon sort of building our own products as well, all of these things. At the end note, what do you think about the SaaS industry in India, particularly because we don't see a lot of SaaS products from India going? Maybe some of them are, but I'm not sure about the industry itself. But Indian products may not be sort of have a global impact in general. How do you look at the Indian SaaS industry as a whole?
So I think we have come a long way from say 10 years back in terms of building a software product from India. So earlier, if you see, there would be only two companies, say Zoho or Freshworks, which were sort of building those products, and there were hundreds of IT services companies which were existing in India, which were selling software services to companies outside of India. Over 10 years, there has been a shift in terms of, so there are a couple of reasons, right? One is there is a lot of tech companies out there in the ecosystem, which has created uh, a lot of talent pool for people to go after and build those infrastructure plays or software plays specifically for other businesses. That is one. The other is a lot of people from US, Indians in US are building software products. So essentially, what our thesis for at least for SaaS right now is you build in India and sell in US because it's cheaper to hire talent in India. It's easier to build a product. Easier in the sense it's low cost to build a talent in India, and then you go ahead and sell that to customers in US, which will pay you like very high ACVs or very high contract sizes. So a lot of people, at least from companies like Freshworks, Zoho, have come out and started companies, have started startups. So even companies like Mindtickle, CleverTap, uh, say Dhruva, these people have sort of come out of these companies and started building a lot of SaaS products. So people are now understanding on how to sell to companies, how to build sort of softwares for other businesses, and there's a lot of talent pool which has accumulated in this in software products, which has given rise to a lot of companies coming out in the last say 3 years. So I would say in the last 3 years there have been like a massive boost in terms of SaaS products coming out of India. And I think in the next 10 years would be interesting to see how much of these companies will actually become big. And I'm so right now I think there are 8 to 9 sort of large businesses which are SaaS companies. In next 10 years, I think there will be 50 such companies.
Yeah. What has been your quickest investment in the sense that maybe there's a process that's involved? What has been the quickest on the fly investment for you? This is off record.
The quickest investment.
Yeah.
I think we invested in a company in 3 days. So yeah.
Sort of left behind. But how do you find a co-founder? Like, although like this question might be answered like a million times on the internet, but so what do you think is like the perfect way to find a co-founder at different stages of your life, starting up something?
I think I think the best founding teams which I have met have the quality that they have worked with each other well. So and they have worked for multiple projects with each other. Now, this can be in college where they were in sort of the same batch, they were senior, junior, they have worked on sort of some projects in their due to their course requirement or probably their research project or probably they have organized a fest together. So there is a good working relationship between the two people or the three people who are trying to build a company. Now, one is college, the other is in a work environment. So people who are sort of employees, people in your team, people who are your colleagues in your current company, right? Those end up being like very good sort of founding teams because you understand how to work with each other. You understand how to work professionally with each other and also keep understanding how the other person complements your skills. And that actually helps a lot in building a business because there'll be a lot of hardships which will come across your way. And if you are standing with each other, still sort of executing well in building that business, then that is I think the most important thing.
Got it.
So yeah, I mean, working with each other for a couple of projects should be your criteria. So you can basically look back and see who have you worked well with in the past, who are sort of who have been your good workmates. So in college, in say your last couple of companies you have worked in, or whichever companies you have worked in. And if you don't find anyone, then probably working with somebody in your network, working with people in your network helps. So if you basically go out, tell people that I'm looking for a co-founder, people in your network will suggest you people in their network who are looking for a co-founder. So you end up matching with them. You work with them for a while. You work with them on a couple of projects for say 3 months, and then you realize how your working relationship with them is. Yeah, but basically working with people actually is the best way for you to find a good co-founder.
Got it.